Hello, my name is Maciek. I work as a UX researcher at DROIDS and ROIDS, obviously. And well, it's a time for some storytelling, but before I start, sorry for coughing. I may cough occasionally during my speech, but supporting your local sport team requires some sacrifices. And before I start, I would like to thank my colleague Bartosz Tekliński, who should be today with me, but couldn't come. So, well, he helped me a lot with the data that I used today. So, thanks again. And as I said, well, storytelling time. I will show you real life examples on things that has been mentioned in the previous presentation. But before I start, I would like to ask you some questions. So, who of you can actually read data? Please raise your hand. Okay, nice. And who of you can read minds? Please raise your hand. So if you can, but you are somehow ashamed of claiming that you can, because I could understand it, then there is no use for you to sit here and listen to me. But if you can't read minds, then sit down and listen carefully, because you may find yourself in a need of hiring a fortune teller in future if you don't use data in your development. So now, this is Tripolis, the capital city of Libya, 7th biggest country in Africa. And another question: how easy do you think is to navigate around this neighborhood, like on a scale of 1 to 10, when 1 means very difficult and 10 very easy? Don't be ashamed. Solid 2. Let's assume you have Google Maps. 8. Still 2. Well, even with Google Maps, you would have a problem with that, because not so long ago in Libya there were no addresses. There were no street names, there were no flat room numbers or house numbers. Everything to what we are used to in well, in Berlin or any other major city simply didn't exist in Libya at all. However, no addresses mean not only that you can get lost in your own neighborhood even, but it means that you have no access to a reliable mail system. You have no access to modern delivery solutions, such as food deliveries, for example, and you have no GPS navigation. And if you are in need of some ambulance or fire brigade, you may have trouble in them getting to your place. So yeah, quite a problematic thing. Luckily, a company called Llama invented an addresses system for Libya. They simply divided the whole country, and believe me, Libya is big, really big. They divided the whole country into multiple zones. Each zone had an alphanumeric address, and each house and each building in Libya got its own alphanumeric address. So it was prepared to be digitally implemented, for example, in a mobile app. And that started the mapping revolution in Libya. So Llama's goal was to provide the whole country with innovative solutions, such as the MACIEJ app, and to accelerate business growth in Libya by simply making their businesses accessible, digitally accessible. They wanted also to solve all their problems that I mentioned in my previous slides. So yeah, this is MACIEJ app, and we developed it. It was a simple GPS navigation app that gave users the possibility to move around their neighborhoods now flawlessly. And we released it in December 2019. It contained over 1 million of addresses in 72 towns and cities in Libya, and it was a huge success. And it was available in Arabic and English, so it was already prepared to spread to the Western world and to the Western businesses. However, a problem appeared after the release. So the release was successful, and now our client wanted to grow. But the problem was they didn't know how to do it, and they had little idea about new features, about solutions they can implement, about what their users want, etc. There was no plan, there was no roadmap, etc. So nothing actually that we needed for the development. So we suggested that we could implement Google Analytics. And why? It's a simple solution to gather data about your users, and well, data is money, simply. You can learn what your users do in your app. You can see what they struggle with, how much time they spend on each screen, what they avoid, for example, clicking, what they like clicking, etc. And on the basis of it, plan, for example, improvements and enhancements to the app. So why gathering data is useful? So you can precisely determine your target group's demography. And by demography, I mean actually everything. You can learn whether you have more women or men in your target group, whether they are young or mature, whether what type of phones they use, what type of OSs they use, and on the basis of this, you can try to predict, or maybe predict is not the best word, but you can try to check what that user group likes and wants, and on the basis of it, plan the development. You can track users' actions in the app. So as I said previously, you can see, for example, how much time they spent on each screen, what they tapped, what they clicked, what they saw, how much they scrolled, and etc. It allows to conduct A/B tests. A/B tests are there to help you in case you struggle with picking the best possible option if you are presented with many. So let's imagine that the designer comes and shows you two screens of the same feature, and you say they both look good, and you can't decide which one should be implemented. So you can actually release both of them and see what converts better. And you can analyze bugs. So whenever bug appears, you can see on how many devices and for how many users it appeared. It helps to minimize abandonment rate and optimize conversions thanks to the A/B test, for example. And the most important, it saves money. And I would like to tell you about 3 cases where we saved our clients money thanks to the data. So case 1, sorry, the bug. As a former QA engineer, because that's how I started my career in mobile development, I know that bugs simply happen. They are there because of software simply makes them happen. And as a former QA engineer, I know that whenever QA finds a bug, POs very rarely consider it something serious. But whenever a key user finds a bug, then, well, it's always a serious problem. And that's exactly what happened. So right before the release, one of the key users from the client's side found a bug on his phone, and he couldn't navigate at all around his city. So it made the app useless for him simply. And obviously the client demanded a quick fix from us. However, fixing bugs is not simple and it's not fast. So we tried to reproduce that bug. So we are one of those companies that do not reproduce and do not test on simulators. We use real devices. So we took like 20, 30 phones or something like this and tried to reproduce that bug, and we failed. We couldn't make it happen. So we asked for the environment, and our client told us that this key user used, as far as I remember, it was Samsung J5 with Android 7 or 6. And we bought that device with that exact operating system, and we reproduced that bug. And then we realized that it's so-called device and OS related bug. And you know, they usually happen on Android devices. It's just Android things, because simply Android is so fragmented, meaning that there is a hell lot of Android devices that it's simply impossible to develop an Android app that will work on each of those gazillion devices. So we checked how many users were affected by that very bug, and as you can see, hopefully, only 2 users out of all of them got that phone, only 2 users got that phone with Android 7. And when we showed that data to our client and explained that usually a bug fix takes from 4 to 8 days, then he told that, well, maybe it's not worth spending that much money and that much time, especially before the release, to help to people, and we can deal with it later on. So we saved the day with the data. That was the first case. The second case was the support, and it happened after the release. So remember when I mentioned that Android devices and Android phones are so-called fragmented, or fragmented. I think that's the proper word here. So again, there are lots of Android devices with lots of setups, and it's simply impossible to make an app work on each and every one of the devices existing. And unfortunately, clients are very reluctant to abandoning even the oldest Android versions, because they think that every user matters. And they are right, every user matters. We should care about our users. However, supporting old Android versions or old iOS versions unfortunately costs money. And at the very beginning of the development process, our client told us that due to the economic situation in Libya, people can't afford modern devices with the newest operating systems, and we need to support old versions of both OSs. And we thought, Android 6, maybe iOS 9, it was 2019, so not that bad. But he told us, no. Android 4.4 and iOS 7, they are both from 2013. So they were already like 7 years old, now 10 years old. And due to that fact, we couldn't use modern development solutions such as, for example, Swift UI, which extremely speeds up the development process and saves money thanks to that. And we needed to use workarounds for simple things such as the material design, which is unavailable on Android 4.4. However, having previous experience with Middle Eastern clients, we somehow doubted that people can't afford modern phones. But we had data. After we implemented analytics, we checked what the actual situation really is. And this is the current situation. So as you can see, there are no people actually currently with Android 5, not to mention Android 4.4. For Android 6, 7, 8, and 9, and even 10 and 11, which are pretty, let's say, modern-ish, the number of users is dropping, while for Android 12 and 13, it's increasing. So it's not that much true that people in Libya do not own modern phones and do not update their operating systems. So we, again, came to our client, we counted the development costs and showed him that data. And, well, he immediately took that decision to abandon Android operating systems from Android 5 to Android 9. Now we are thinking of abandoning Android 10 and 11 even, but we need to wait some more time to do it. But again, we could use modern development solutions such as Swift UI, as I mentioned, and Android Compose, which sped up the development process massively, and again, thanks to that, saved our clients money. And now, case 3, and spoiler alert, there will be no happy end, new features. So, as I said before, our client, right after the MVP release, had little idea what to do next. And one day he came to us and said, my users want to have this multiple navigation feature implemented. And we asked him, how do you know? And he told us that I know my users. So whenever our client tells us that he or she knows their users, we believe. No, we don't. So we always offer user research to check the hypothesis, and we offered him to either conduct a qualitative survey to check whether people need something like this, or conduct in-depth interviews to check what actually people need in terms of navigation. But He told us that there is no time because people want another release and they want something big. So it's the development time, not the research time. And we spent another 3 months now planning, refining, developing, testing, designing, and releasing a feature. And if you can think of an average IT specialist rate, 3 months, 8 people, well, you can count how costly it was. But it appeared we don't know a thing about mobile development because the feature was a huge success, apart from it was not. Up till now, multiple stop navigation has been used by less than 3% of users in 2 years' time. And if you think, if you can see detailed analytics, then here, I hope you can see it, if not I will read it. It shows you how many times people try to navigate to a place with 2 stops, so from point A to B, and they attempted it over 90,000 times, and they only, for navigation with 3 stops, so A, B in the middle, and C as a destination point, only 742 attempts for 2 years. For 4 stops, 59 attempts for 2 years. We could have learned about that if we had conducted the research, but our client told us that there is no time for it, so he paid for the development of something that is not used. And what's even more interesting, we wanted to check what people really want regarding the navigation and regarding the app itself. And look here. This event, Makani Navigation Exit, tells us how many times people opened the navigation, just preview the route, exited, and used some other app probably to navigate. So it happened 22,000 times. And we don't know what app they use to navigate, and we don't know why they don't want to use Makani for the navigation. We could have learned about that, but our client said that there is no time. So for this case, there is no happy end, as I said. So what are the conclusions? We saved clients money thanks to the data we gathered, and we could have saved even more if we had added some qualitative UX research to it. We sped up the development thanks to basing it on the data, and we could have sped it up even more if we had conducted research earlier. And lessons learned from that project? We are not our users' parents. We don't know what is best for them, but they do. We can simply ask them what they like, what they don't like about the solutions they use, and on the basis of it, we can analyze it and think what we can implement in the next releases. Data gathering and analysis plays a key role for planning next releases in terms, for example, of discovering who your target group is and what they want. Qualitative and demographic data are necessary if we want to deeply learn about our target audience, and we don't need to cover the whole app, luckily, with the analytics to find what we are looking for. We only need to cover the core path, or, for example, the paths or flows that we really want and we really need insights on. If you need help with your app, look for us in yellow merch. we are happy to talk to you. If you have any questions now, then I'm here for you, and thank you for your time and patience.